don't give a damn about Jimmy Kimmel getting cancelled. Astrologically, we're in the downfall of colonialism, and you clowns who are being so emotional should be so embarrassed, because it's really telling on yourself. Because tell me, where was your emotion, your empathy, your passion when it came to the tens of thousands, if God forbid, millions of public figures that came before him? You know, all those marginalized folks that were telling you about the different kinds of oppression, the different kinds of fascism, the discrimination they were facing. But now you care because a figure that aligns to your comfort zone, all of a sudden you see the threats that could come your way. May I remind you, 2025 to 2028 is the year where the karmic prison opens. And in every way that you aligned with the oppressor, you were complicit with the oppressor, even down to how you were indifferent to the suffering they cause the rest of the world. Oh baby, it comes for you, because your ideologies, your indifferences, whatever way you normalize that fucking poison, it imprisons you. But I actually want to take this moment to remind you that Saturn's currently going through the 9 types of Pisces, and it births really iconic journalists and new talk show hosts. So let's concentrate on them, shall we? So weirdly enough, whenever Saturn goes through Pisces, 2 things always happen without fail. Number 1, and very unfortunately, we always see the rise of like fascist regimes or really fucking nasty oppressive governments. But fun fact, they never last. Bada boom, bada bing. But alongside that, you always see the beginning of the most important, like, iconic cultural figures, especially when it comes to this kind of guise of a chat host, right? A cultural commentator. So look at it like this. Saturn in Vedic astrology symbolizes literally fucking hundreds of 3 things, but I've narrowed it down to these 3 themes that I think really shape up why this reality always repeats itself. So number 1, when you look at Saturn, it destroys illusion. So how telling in a time where oppressive regimes really rely on propaganda and controlling media and the narratives and education, essentially indoctrinating people into their oppressive culture. There are always these beings that come to light that can just pierce through it. Number 2, Saturn symbolizes someone who will be very cleverly in worldly matters. Again, we know fascist regimes, and again, many different kinds of oppressive regimes, rely heavily on removing education, knowledge, information from people, right? Access to even considering there are different perspectives and understandings on the weird shit that they're doing. So how fucking cool that God, because again, Vedic astrology is a religious practice, that God always kind of creates these figures that come into the limelight that are so well versed, not just on like, you know, what's happening around them, but different kinds of sciences, humanities, right? So as there's like a government crackdown, unfortunately, to ascend people into darkness of different kinds, both intellectual, spiritual, God forbid, physical, emotional, psychological, and all that. There's just, they're just these really cool figures that arise, and even in the most darkest of times are a light of knowledge, a vessel of knowledge, right? And then thirdly, Saturn has deep ass influence. So again, we know oppressive regimes kind of rely on this idea of cult personalities, right? This magnificent mythical figure who is saving us, who is restoring our dignity, giving us wealth and all of that. Bull motherfucking shit. And also how cool and how comical that the cult of personality is actually matched by someone who is so thought-provoking that they deeply influence people in a matter of 30 minutes an hour, compared to a weirdo who needed multi-millions of God knows what currency, all kinds of communication marketing cells to even, and after years, to even have that influence, and boop, here comes this fucker. But also, this is important in terms of God's plans. Astrologically, with the downfall of colonialism. So look at it like this, right? If colonialism's first phase is really about obliterating our identity so we can redefine ourselves, free of any oppressive norms and all the shit that kind of manipulates us into upholding their systems and structures, don't you think it's such a necessary time to have marginalized people take up these spaces and become these figures for their different communities, cultures, and movements? And it's really likely your asses will get a lot of fucking fame. So no, I'm not sorry about a Jimmy Kimmel or any of these chat show hosts who have benefited from fucking oppression, accepted paychecks from the colonizers and their fucking blood regimes of media outlets. But I'm hella excited for the opportunities it gives you all. Now let me walk you through the 9 types of Pisces, right? Because that's where I really think you see the energy and vibe of these people. So Saturn begins in Bhadra, that's Pisces type 1. So Bhadra often talks about a fiery transformation of one's beliefs, right? So we know these figures who come along completely change the way people are viewing themselves. And often, think of the dynamics that are currently at play. So many people feel hopeless, like they can't do anything. You don't think we need figures to come on board and not just give you instructions, but give you the will, the comedy, the energy, the perspective to dismantle and take on fascism and colonialism. Come on now. Even then, Bhadra is a lot to do with humanitarianism, right? It's ruled by Jupiter. So again, these are the people that would give their last fucking pound to the causes that they care about. And the thing that I find so interesting, Bhadra is ruled by a deity who has really low self-esteem, even though he goes on to build the world, right? And is so responsible for the architecturing, the systems and structures that allow it to flourish. This is what I'm saying. You all don't see the power in your storytelling. Go and check out my Instagram and the post that I did for Navratri. You speaking your truth, however funny, funky, fresh, different it is to what we're used to, is so necessary right now. It leads to good changes, but you got to get out there, hibiscuses. Then we have Uttarbhadra, right? That's Pisces type 2 to 5. Now, Uttarbhadra is something else. Number 1, it deals a lot with ancestral wealth and ancestral karmas. Do not underestimate what you think is a silly little hobby or no one would really care about what I think could be deeply impactful to not just your family, but to your communities, to your cultures. You got to remember, oppression relies on the erosion of truth, remixing history, burning books, informations, and people who are vessels of knowledge. Bro, you have to see how come on now, just think a little bit deeper, right? Also, Uttarbhadra is deeply, deeply creative, right? So that means even if you're talking about uncomfortable things, deeper things, there's just some comedy, some allure, there's a lot of seduction in what you're saying, even if you're not talking about such seductive topics. And I think what's really important is Uttarbhadra has the ability to also deeply influence people, but it can make the impossible happen. So again, we have lived through decades of these fucking chat show hosts, right? And yeah, time to time they talk about important things and reveal it, but they have never been agents of change. So what happens when you all come along and not only take a certain spot, but you completely redefine the influence, the impact, and the changes that spot can create? Finally, you have Ravati, that's Pisces type 6 to 9. Long story short, it talks about planting seeds that future generations really can feed and eat off and benefit from. It deals a lot with sacrificing for others too. Look, let me give you 3 reasons why I think it's so important that marginalized people take up these seats of communication, especially in this funky ass time that we find ourselves in. You may not see it, but your authenticity, your credibility is such a perfect tool for dismantling oppression from the inside. Look, oppression really thrives on dehumanizing victims of its hate. They create all these funky stereotypes, archetypes, all the conspiracy theories controlling the narrative. So when you come along, yeah, you shatter all that bullshit. You essentially become the ultimate fact checker of this motherfucker. You become a living rebuttal and essentially showing how full of shit and lying and weird that they are. You can transform statistics into stories, hibiscuses. Fascism thrives on making oppression weirdly, not personable. So when you start translating policy changes, diplomatic moves, you basically start really breaking down what they're doing in a real human accessible way. Fuck me, do people respond. Number 2, you can reclaim the narrative power. We're no longer the other. So instead of being spoken about, we are speaking for ourselves. We define our identity, our community, our agenda. We reclaim power and agency over ourselves instead of allowing the oppressor to feel like they can control us and hurt us. We normalize our presence, that yes, we're here, we're staying, now fuck off. Our visibility is such a direct threat to their bullshit. Number 3, we can inspire resistance and essentially build coalition against different communities. The fight against fascism requires mass mobilization and obviously the courage to resist. Seeing a victim of oppression with a visible voice and level of influences has a profound effect on not just our communities but all others. We can start communicating how our causes and our challenges are not so different. And when we bridge those gaps, they are the exact steps that lead to the end of colonialism. Duh.